Hi everyone and welcome back to your weekly installment of the Reserve List Top 10. These are the hottest selling cards on the Reserve List this week from December 14th to the 21st of 2024. And as you know, these Reserve List Top 10 videos are weekly. All the information you ever need to know about the Reserve List is found right here on my channel. Hi everyone and welcome back. MTG Moxman here, and thanks again for hanging out with me for another video on the Reserve List. I love this stuff. Now a reminder before we start, if you like this video, if you like hanging out with me, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, turn on that notification bell. Now you can also use my TCG Player affiliate link if you're going shopping for any of these yummy Reserve List cards that you see in today's video. Now the number 10 card this week is Sanctum from Urza Saga. This card comes in with an average price of $255.92 per copy. And there were 41 recorded sales this week, which is $10,492.72. That is a lot of money being spent, but we can't forget that coming from the Urza's block, this card is old and there's only a finite amount available. Now, when I say finite, I mean who knows who's in people's collections and what cards are coming to bear, but there's only a few hundred copies available on the open market for this particular card. Players do tend to buy these and not put them back up for sale, knowing that eventually these cards always spike. The Urza lands are some of the most powerful ever created in Magic the Gathering, so buying one now for $255 may seem like a dreaming will if you look 20 years from now, but that's okay. There's lots of time to still buy it. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the number 9 card this week. And that is Gaia's Cradle, again from Urza Saga, with an average price of $842.99, 47 copies recorded sold, and $39,620 of total sales action, making this the most expensive of the Urza's block lands currently. I mean, this thing is a beast. This legendary land says you get to add that green mana for each creature you control. It is often copied and imitated by Wizards of the Coast, but it cannot be produced because it's Reserve List. Understand your market and things will happen. Cards like this are becoming very expensive. They did see a lull in 2022 and 2023, but after this point, we've seen this card steadily climbing over the year, and that's just because there's only so many copies available. Again, it's an Urza block card. It's one of the most powerful lands ever created. This stuff is insane to look at it being recorded and to look at the stock volumes available on the open market. And guess what? We're not done there yet. Our next card is Taran Academy from Urza Saga. Yeah, you see where I'm going with this today? Look at the sales, guys. 50 sales this week. This card, of course, is banned in basically every format except for one, and that is $168.99 per copy. Still over $8,000 of total sales action because this one is a little bit more broken. Add 1 blue to your mana pool for each artifact you control, and as we know, Wizards has made artifacts kind of easy to get nowadays, treasure tokens, clue tokens. This card would become severely broken if it gets unbanned, but the amount of sales and the price currently holding at its market level tells me that there's a lot of players out there who do believe there may be a place for this in the future in some kind of tiered bracket thing for Commander, which means these copies continue to have a high demand of price and a lower stock volume than would normally be available on the open market. Again, these cards are all approaching that 30-year mark, and they're just getting harder to find, especially in decent condition, guys. Know your market, know where you're at. Don't sell if you don't have to. These things are insane. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next card this week, which was number 1 last week, falling all the way down the list this week, but it's Hall of Gemstone taking the number 7 position with 56 sales or $692.72 in sales action. Now, it's $12.37 a copy. This card is actually a really good card, and it just doesn't get a lot of play right now. For 2 green and 1 other, the Hall of Gemstone, which has epic artwork, by the way, it says during each player's upkeep, that player chooses a color, and until end of turn, each mana-producing land produces mana of the chosen color, which means you can really mess people up, especially if you're playing monocolor green or something like that. It's an insane card to have around in Commander. A lot of players don't see it coming. I have used it a couple times, and yes, it does get a lot of resentment though, so be prepared for the backlash that is about to spell your doom when players gang up on you because you become the threat. Yeah, they know what's happening, guys. Either way, a great card for under 15 bucks makes perfect sense. Now, our next card's a bit of a surprise as well, and here we are jumping over and taking a look at Urza's Legacy again, and we've got Grim Monolith. This thing is back on the list again, $298.80 per copy. It had 64 sales this week. That's $19,123.20 of total sales action. That's a lot of money being spent on this card. Now, I know here in Canada we have no GST, HST stuff going right now. It's kind of insane. Like most of the taxes are off. So it's kind of a big thing when you go and get these cards from local stores and you get like a discount from like your store for being like a high level person. You can save a lot of money right now. So a lot of sales in Canada are higher than normal. Stores are pretty happy. Players are pretty happy. It's all going around. So Grim Monolith is one of those cards that after you own the Grim Monolith, you're not going to trade it. You're not going to sell it. It's going to end up being a showpiece you're going to keep for the rest of your probably Magic career. So it makes sense. Unless you have to sell, players tend to get one or two of these and just hold on to them. It's still under $400, which is a pretty good deal in my book. I expect this thing to be a $500 card. And right now it looks like it's still 30 to 40% off in my eyes. So keep going, guys. Now our next card is coming to us from Visions. This is the Anvil Bo Garden. Now this thing's been as high as like $180. Now the number 5 position, it's at 73 sales or $2,494.41 because it's only $34.17 per copy. Moderate, heavily played copies are around $25 on TCG Player. And in case you didn't know, this card, it's kind of nice because each player skips his or her discard phase. Each player draws during their draw phase an additional card and then chooses and discards. But if you have other things that make you not discard or discard to the top of your deck, like a Library of Lang, there was lots of ways of manipulating this card to make it really work out in your favor as opposed to your opponents, which nowadays you could have like that restful sleep and stuff where you like exile every card that goes to the graveyard every turn, which means it would just start eliminating cards. It's a lot of fun, guys. You should try this stuff out. I haven't successfully done it, but I've seen some friends do it. Pretty awesome. Now we're jumping over to Fallen Empires. Here we have Rainbow Veil. Now this card's lost some ground. It lost about 20% in the last month and a bit. 90 sales though tells me that $486.90, $5.41 per copy. Players are taking an interest as this card decreases in value to pick up a little additional stock because Rainbow Veil, other than the beautiful artwork, it does say add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, but then you have to give it to your opponent at the end of turn. So you have to find a way to get around giving it to your opponent. But other than that, like little piece of history, this card giving you any color can be what you need to win the game. It can be the card that lets you get out the exact thing you need at the exact moment. Even if it does go to an opponent, it's still an amazing card to get control of and use to make sure you always have a mana. And really, for under $5, it seems insane that you can still get this card this cheap. Love it. It's Fallen Empires. It's so cheap. Let's go ahead, though. Let's take a look at our next card, which is from Revised. And this is Fork. Now, Fork from Revised should be around $80. It's not. This thing's $33.78 for a near mint copy. It's like $22 on TCG Player for a moderately played copy. The 92 sales represents $3,107 of sales action, okay? Fork back in the day was an interrupt. Just treat it like an instant nowadays. We don't have interrupts anymore. But the idea of this card being able to copy things, and we have other cards that do a similar action of copying, it means even when you're playing in Commander, you can have multiple ways of splicing an effect and copying it over and over and over again to just obliterate your opponents, multiple opponents at the same time. Given the mana pool and the way the game is played now, it's not inconceivable to do this. And the fact that this card is still less than $50 when I know it should be like 80 is amazing. And of course, it's reserve list. There's a lot of this one though. Don't think of it like an Urza land. There's a lot more of this card out there than people realize. Now, for our next card, we're jumping over and taking a look at Jester's Mask. Now, this Ice Age card really has commanded a high position the last couple of weeks. A lot of people are interested in buying it. So, I mean, you got to use things like Amulet of Iger to really make this thing go up. But 105 sales is only $430.50. Guys, it's less than $500 for that many copies. So what are we talking about? Well, this thing makes your opponents get a whole new hand of cards based on how many cards they had in their hand. If somebody's got 20, 30 cards, you can mess them up. There's lots of decks that let them draw like tons of cards. This can be the card that is the showstopper of all those cards. And the fact it's less than $5 a copy is insane. And with all the cards that let your artifacts come into play untapped, this thing can come in and be used right away for that 6 mana. 5 to get it out, 1 to use it, boom, mess up the opponent, treat it as a threat mechanism inside Commander, and it fits into any color deck because it's a colorless artifact. The old school artifacts are always the best. Even when they appear weak, they're actually quite powerful. But it's not number 1. Number 1 this week is Lake of the Dead from Alliances. This card comes in with an average price of $81.93. It's actually been going down in value. Now, this card this week had a total of 109 sales, or $8,930.37. That is a lot of money being spent on this Alliance's card. Now, the artwork, I'm always going to say, is some of the best that Magic the Gathering has ever produced, and this card is a very powerful card. It taps to add 1 black mana to your mana pool, but you can sacrifice a swamp to add 4 black mana to your mana pool. When it comes into play, you got to sacrifice a swamp or you bury the Lake of the Dead. This thing is insane because it itself doesn't even come into play tapped. You're just exchanging a land for a land. And if you have ways of going back and getting the lands you sacrifice, and you can find ways to untap this multiple times, like a Candelabra of Tanos effect, this thing can be a devastating card in any format in which it is allowed. And again, it's less than $100. It costs less than Sheoldred the Apocalypse. That is insanity by definition. This is one of those weeks where I like to comment on the reserve list itself as an entity that will not be touched again by Wizards of the Coast. The last attempt they made was 30th anniversary. They got slapped so hard, they went running for the hills. They cried in the ivory tower at the lack of sales from the 30th anniversary, and they realized that their marketing team, their belief that they had worked and rubbed away at the resistance on the reserve list had failed. And they're not going back there anytime soon. That promise is standing strong. Players believe in it, and that's why these cards will continue to have higher value as the game progresses. Because as more Magic players join the game, as the decades roll by, some of these cards are lost in collections. Some of these cards will be put into a collection and never see the light of day. And that means the players who want to buy these cards will have to pay an increasing cost as the years go by. It may not be 5 years, it may not be 10 years, but at some point, cards get repriced and things change. You do not want to be caught on the bottom of the well when the price jumps up and you're clamoring to catch a breath of air and hopefully get one of them. Buy these cards when they're low. Buy these cards when they're in the dip, and don't think about it again. It's like any other investment. After you have it, you can enjoy it, play with it, abuse it, do whatever you want with that piece of cardboard. But not having one means you no longer have a choice. You are trying to get what somebody else already owns, and you may have to pay an increasing price tag for that privilege of owning one of those cards. Because remember, it is a privilege, not a right, to own that piece of cardboard. It has 30 years of history behind it. Other people before you kept that cardboard in pristine condition. They protected it, they nurtured it, they kept it in binders. They're the ones who are the beneficiaries of all the years of waiting, holding, and protecting that asset, so you, a new up-and-coming player, has the opportunity to buy that card. Guys, the reserve list is amazing. The prices are really low right now. There's a really good opportunity to buy some of these cards that most people don't see because they are caught by the flashiness of the new cards. And you're welcome to it. Keep buying that new stuff. Go for that shoulder right until it gets reprinted or banned or whatever else comes along. But that Lake of the Dead, that Anvil Bo Garden, Fork, they're not coming back. Ever. Guys, have a great day. Shop smart, shop S-Smart. I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Hey guys, a big shout out, a thank you, a real big thank you, an amazing thank you, a boomstick edition thank you to the fantastic patrons we have on this channel supporting each and every day. If it wasn't for those patrons, this daily uploaded content, it would not be possible. I'd be at some corner store having to work a third or fourth job. It'd be insane. I wouldn't be doing the stuff I love, and it's because of patrons that I'm allowed to do so. So thanks again, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow with another video. If you... Sorry. Ramble Jamble, we're back again. All right. If you look at a Taran Academy, and then you look at a Mox Opal, which one would you rather own? Right? A Wheel of Fortune or 2 Sheoldreds? 10 Sheoldreds or a Gaia's Cradle? Are you good? Like, no matter how I toss this up, any modern card is going to get reprinted at some point. Banned or unbanned, money is made. But reserve list cards, it's the cheese. It stands alone. It is the pedestal which most people aspire to get to or are jealous of the fact they can't get there. It is where it's at. When you walk into a room you're playing Power, people are either going to say you have way too much money, or they're going to think you're proxying, or whatever story they want to come up with to... Anyway. Sometimes, when you're playing a game with some friends, you're playing some old school cards at a local card shop, just having a good time, minding your own business, and other people lean over, they see the card. Some people get very excited. Some people actually get downright belligerent. And they don't realize you may have had the card since you were a teenager. They may not know anything, and they think they do. And they're entitled to that opinion, but they don't have to tell you about it. I don't need to listen to your opinion. Now, I know you didn't know who I was. It sounds so bad, guys. Sometimes you just want to play a game of Magic in peace. And yeah, you want to play with your old school cards. You want to play with a couple of friends, playing the way we used to play, and you want to play at a card shop. Nobody has to watch you, but they do like to watch, and some people are in awe, and some people are just downright jealous. Yeah, take this story for what you will. I'm sorry. I know this wasn't the most well thought out ramble jamble, but it is what it is, man. I don't erase these ones. Whatever comes out of my mouth comes out. Guys, have a great one. Play some Magic. Have a good time. Don't get jealous. Just play and enjoy the game.